Morning, Tim. Glad you're here on the show.
Yeah.
Uh, and here with my bud Kenny Bayless. Who I thought you were supposed to be in Puerto Rico, but I'm glad you're here anyway. Can we do this? Okay. So now here we go. Uh, so glad that you've agreed to come on the show. You're one of the giants in the business. You were one of the giants in the boxing world, and I'm really happy that I get an opportunity now to share with you and our public out there. Tim Bradley, the Desert Storm, five-time champion, 140 amateur fights, boxing analyst for ESPN, and if you didn't know, an inductee in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. It doesn't get any better than that. Now, I I want to let folks out there know that which if they don't already know, that you are very outspoken. But most of the time, in my opinion, you've been on point. Which brings me to this Fatal Fury card that was in New York. Uh, what are your opinions?
First of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me on the show, Mr. Byrd. You know, we go way back. I got a lot of respect for you. You know, I got a lot of respect for all the officials, just anyone in general that spend their time in the field of boxing. You know, first, let me just say that. Secondly, I thought it was horrible. You know, I'm gonna come right out, come right for the jugular.
Yeah,
Terrible.
yeah.
I thought the entire thing was terrible. I mean, I thought the idea in itself, I was wondering how that was actually going to be ran. I thought there was going to be fans present, but there wasn't fans present at all. They only had some guests, I guess, that were there. I didn't like the way it was ran. One, I didn't like the way the fighters had to go in a vehicle from the hotel. They had to warm up in the hotel. They didn't have any dressing rooms. It almost felt like it was just entertainment, you know, and the fighters were just the ones in the ring. They're fighting, but you know, they had drummers and DJs and they're showing all this weird stuff. And it didn't feel like a boxing event to me. So I thought it was horrible. Didn't like the presentation at all. But, you know, look, Turkey Al-Sheikh has been in this business a little bit over a year now or so. You know, he has definitely given boxers opportunities. He's definitely put on some fights that we've wanted to see. You know, it's not all bad. However, this particular event I thought wasn't the best.
Yeah. Now, most of the information that I got resolved around the Devin Haney
Okay.
fight. Um, your thoughts?
Devin Haney fight. I thought it was terrible. Look, you got a year, he had a year off. I like the fact that he took a year off. I was waiting on him to, you know, come back, kind of like, you know, regroup, you know, rest his body, you know, work on his craft, enhance his craft. However, when he got inside the ring, I was like, what is he doing? You know, it almost felt like he had, you know, some lingering effects from the last fight. He didn't want to get hit. You know, that's a problem. You know,
Mm-hmm.
look, check this out. Before anybody even try to judge me and say, you don't know, Tim. No, I'm going to tell you the real. I was in the 2013 fight of the year against
Yep.
Ruslan Pavannikov. I
Mm-hmm.
suffered a massive amount of damage in that fight as well. However, 8 months after that, and I was very open with everybody of everything that I went through, from slurred speech to dizziness, you know, to light sensitivity to, mood swings, so on and so forth, because I was concussed, right? 8 months later, I go and I fight the man that knocked out Manny Pacquiao in Marquez, a real puncher, a top 10 fighter, pound for pound. And I went in that ring and I schooled him. Now, it's because I was prepared. I was ready mentally. Yeah, was I afraid that I can get caught and get hurt? Absolutely. However, heart, being well trained mentally, working on my craft, understanding who I am as a man, understanding my past and what I did in the past, to help me in this situation. And I fought my behind off, man. And I felt like Devin Haney could have did a lot more. He could have did better than that, man. Go ahead.
Tim, and I watched some of your comments.
Yeah.
Because he was supposed to be trained by Shane
Mosley.
I understand the comments you made. Now, I spoke with Shane last night, and basically he said to make certain that if you talk with him, you tell him that everything that I did with him, they didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do it. They didn't follow the instructions and all the stuff. He wasn't the same guy in the fight that he was in sparring. And I understand that, because when we go to gyms, when I go to gyms to work on my craft, go in there to work sparring in the gym. Well, one of the things that was positive about me doing that is I get an opportunity to see how guys are being trained and who's training them. And frankly, in my opinion, the old school trainers, there's not a lot of them out there today. There's just not a lot of them out there today. So it makes me well aware sometimes that if I see this particular fighter and I know how he's been trained in the gym, I'm going to be a little more, careful with that fight, because I know how he's been trained. I know, who's been training him. But the bottom line is really this to me, that I can give you all the instructions in the world, but you got to listen.
Absolutely.
It's a difference between hearing me and listening to me. And what I don't understand is you pay a guy, your corner guy or your manager, to see what you can't see. And when you come back to that corner, they're supposed to be telling you what it is you need to do when you go back out there, but you got to listen to them, and then you've got to do it.
Absolutely. And that boils down to the fighters. That boils down to the individual that's in there fighting to do what he was trained to do. However, that wasn't in Haney's mind. Haney was worried about getting caught. Haney was worried about, if I get hit on that chin, I don't know if I can take it. PSD, what you call that? Post-traumatic stress. That's a real thing. PTSD is a real thing. It is. It truly is. And fighters go through it, especially when you go through something traumatic. However, you had a year to prepare yourself for that. A year to get yourself. I saw his body. His body was tight and he was strong, and he looked like he was ready to do something. But what you don't understand, Mr. Byrd, is that the most important muscle in the body, especially when you're getting in there and fight, is this right here. And that's what I worked the most. I did more of this training when I came back than actual physical training. It was more of the mental preparation that I had to get right with this in order to know that, hey, I'm ready. I know I can take a punch.
And I know you were, because I did that fight.
Yeah.
When you fought Marquez, when you came back.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful fight. Beautiful.
Best fight of my career, I think.
But I remember, after they asked you the question, and you were very honest. You said, I was buzzed.
Yeah.
Man, I was buzzed. I got hit and it affected me.
Yeah.
But to your testament, you had the intestinal fortitude and the understanding that I need to be more mentally tough when I go back in. And
Absolutely.
that's what I think people want to see, and they didn't see it. And
No.
frankly, I think you sometimes you get bum shy that second time out, and
Yeah.
that to me um, puts you more at risk.
Yeah, he
You
looked like he was Haney looked like he was a shell of himself inside the ring. There was a couple of guys that looked that way. Even Ryan Garcia, he looked like a shell of himself as well. And Haney looked like a defective fighter. Like for instance, like he looked like he was ruined. To be honest with you, like if you are afraid to get hit, you don't belong inside the ring. That's plain and simple. Because you gonna get hit. Even the best in the world get hit. It's bound to happen. You know, and he just looked like he was afraid to get hit. And
yeah.
then you can see it starting to, you start to see it unfold a little bit. You know what I mean? He started to get a little bit more comfortable. He started jabbing a little bit more. As the fight went on, you can see it kind of him trying to shed that old Haney, trying to shed it away. However, at that time, it wasn't good enough because I'm sitting there, I'm falling asleep, and I'm saying to myself, man, why did I pay all this money to see this? I don't want to see somebody running around the ring like that. Like people, I'm telling you, that's not boxing. That is not boxing. Floyd Mayweather didn't run around the ring like this in the circle in the track meet. No, Floyd would move and then he'll hit. He will move and he will hit. It wasn't just circling, circling, circling. Oh, let me get out the way. Let me get out the way. I've been seeing that more and more every time a big fight is on. I'm
Saw it
seeing
in
it more and
Saudi.
more.
We saw
Saw
it
it
in
inside
Saudi.
here. Yes, absolutely. And let me tell you something about this whole Saudi thing, right? Again, Turkey has done some great things for the sport. He's done some great things for these fighters. It's not all bad. However, the psychology of the fighter is starting to change because of these large paychecks. A lot of these guys ain't even worth the amount of money that they're getting paid. But as soon as they get it, right, they get comfortable. They get complacent. That's the problem. The psychology is starting to change. Let's say the 12 rounds, right? 12 rounds championship fights. Four of these fights, the most like the CompuBox numbers being the lowest of all time.
Yeah.
Four fights happen on Saudi's cards. It's because these guys are no longer becoming hungry. They're not hungry at all.
Yeah.
There's really no incentive now. I'm getting paid. Hey, my family is good. I'm comfortable. And the higher you move up in the sport, yes, it gets tougher and tougher. It gets tougher and tougher to remain focused and stay at the top. That's why Floyd wants to say it's lonely at the top. It is because
Yeah.
it's you versus you.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys now, they just saying, hey, I made it. I'm good. My family's good. I got money now. I ain't no need. They just saying, I'm looking to take as much money while Turkey is here in the sport and forget about giving the sport the fights that, they really want to see. You know what I'm saying? Look, we
And you
get
know
the
what?
matchups. However, the heart, the passion, and being inside that ring and being a true fighter is no longer there.
I'm glad you brought Turkey up because there's a couple of things now that I think, if they're successful, are going to change the face of boxing over the course of the next 18 months, 2 years. And one of those is this merger between Dana White and Turkey. What they want to do, come up with this boxing league, and as I understand it,
Oh,
what they
don't
also want to
forget,
do is they want to go back
don't
to,
forget the hold up. Well, don't forget the WWE as well. Nick Khan. These are three billionaires.
yeah, yeah. But what Turkey and Dana want to do, as I understand it, is they want to form this fight league. And what they want to do is they want to go back to the original just 8 champions. So when you say who's the champion, there was no question about it. You knew who the champion was. Um, I don't know that it's going to go, but what I do know is that uh, financially, there can be no problem because Turkey has money, and so does Dana White. Um, what are your thoughts on what it is and one of the things, critical things that I see, if they proceed with this, how is it going to be received by the sanctioning bodies? You know, the 4 sanctioning bodies, when they take over this thing, if in fact they do.
Look, I don't know the formality, and I don't know the stipulations or the guidelines of which how they're going to run this league. So I don't want to speak out of line. You know, again, if anybody wants to infuse money into the sport, I'm all for it. You know, you got 3 billionaires that are interested in making boxing better. You know, so that's what they're trying to do. However, I'm hearing that they're trying to get rid of the Muhammad Ali Act, and that's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, you know, because that was established years ago, right? And it's not just about seeing the breakdown, you know. I kind of had to educate myself on this whole Muhammad Ali Act. It's actually like, if this league was formed, let's say if this league was formed, right? Give me 1 second, my bad. If this league, can you hear me? Can you see me?
I got you. Yeah.
If this league was formed, what happens is the sanctioning bodies basically get shut out. Now they have their own league and what they're doing, and they'll have their one champion and so on and so forth. But again, it wouldn't coincide with what we have now. And that's an issue. You get what I'm saying? It wouldn't coincide with the rankings of the WBC or the WBA or this or that. And then fighters will have to choose on which way they want to go. You know, if they want to go that route, that's fine. That's cool. They have set purses. You know, there's one champion, one entity. But I'm going to tell you this. If the money isn't greater, fighters are not going to participate in that. You know, a lot of people have a lot to say about this whole league that they're going to be trying to bring in. However, they need product. And if they don't have product, then there's no league. So fighters are going to have a choice on whether they want to do it the traditional way, that like it's always been, where you have these prestigious belts that's been around for many years that everybody in the world recognizes, or are they going to be part of this new entity that is trying to attach itself to boxing and the TKO promotions and what they're trying to do? So, you know, there's some choices that's going to need to be made at the end of the day. So
well, it's you know, it's similar to golf. You know, with the LIV, they're coming up with a ton of money, as opposed to the PGA, which has been around for years and years and years, and a lot of the top golfers they took the money and they ran with the LIV. But like I said, I think what they're doing, and you know, and everything has to evolve. I understand that, but what they're doing, if in fact it works out, it can change the face of boxing over the course of the next 18 months, 2 years.
Look. The same thing with the UFC. This is my take, and this is what I think. Now, it doesn't make me right. However, they're trying to bring the same concept Dana is of UFC. Having one champion, having everything under one umbrella, and having complete control and monopolizing the sport in that way. That's what they're trying to do. Okay. I understand the best will fight the best. I get that. You know, I understand that. That's fine. The UFC, that's what the system is. They can control the rankings and where guys are placed. You know, you have to fight this guy, you have to fight that guy, so on and so forth. Okay, I get that. However, the Muhammad Ali Act is put forth so that doesn't happen. So no one particularly can monopolize the sport. That's why we have so many promoters in our business. You know, and I know we've always said we want a governing body. I feel that we need a governing body. You know what I mean? We do. We need someone to oversee everything while everybody's doing their fights. Hey, this is what we need to happen. Your number one guy needs to fight this guy. You know, he's number one over here. You know what I mean? Like they all need to work together. But that hasn't happened. So that's the reason why TKO is coming in and saying, hey, we want to monopolize boxing. We want to control boxing just like we do at UFC, you know, and we have some powerful people behind us to make this happen.
Okay, one of the other things that's out there, and the WBC has come out vehemently against it, and that is Amanda Serrano has come up and said, we women would like to do 12 3-minute round for championship fight, just like the men. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's not a good thing? Because the WBC has said it's a safety issue. And yet, when I go to gyms, I see women doing sparring 3-minute rounds, 1-minute rest. How do you feel about it?
Women, I don't think women boxing, at first I thought that they needed 3 rounds, but that's not the case. I think what will help women's boxing is smaller gloves. I don't understand why women are wearing 8-ounce gloves. You know, they don't need to be wearing 8. They should be wearing 8-ounce gloves at a certain weight over welterweight. And, you know, you have to have those gloves because just like at welterweight, it's 10-ounce gloves. Anything above that, you know, I think it's in the state of California and Vegas, I'm sure. But they should be wearing 6-ounce gloves. Wear the gloves smaller so they can produce knockouts. Women naturally up top, they not strong. They not strong like men are. You know what I mean? They stronger on the lower part. The legs are strong. So if you want to see more knockouts in women, give them smaller gloves, almost like the UFC. They got smaller gloves, and women are not able to knock women out. You know, there. I think that can help women's boxing. However, the 2 minutes, we get the best fights when it's 2 minutes out of the women boxing. Shoot, Katie Taylor and Serrano. Ooh, man, you come on now. You got
WBC. They're in
WBC. Come on now.
But they're floating the idea of making men's fight 2-minute rounds, and they're quoting again for safety reasons.
Hey, look. 3-minute rounds, a lot of these guys ain't doing much. 2-minute rounds, you're gonna have to get busy. You know, try it out. You know, I don't know if it'll work. Maybe the guys even get slower and not even try in 2 minutes. Maybe the pace will slow down even more. However, you know, look, man, you gotta try to you gotta do your research at the end of the day. You gotta do your research. The WBC is pretty extensive when it comes to doing their research and understanding that, hey, these women, they're built different than the men, you know, and I get that they want to do 3 minutes. And I talked to Suleiman about this personally, and he told me, you know, Tim, like, we have the scientific proof, you know, that it wouldn't be good for a woman to go 3-minute rounds. And I said, hey, man, I trust you on this. I get it. You know, I felt in my heart that they should be able to do it, you know, and when they look in the Olympics, hey, if you doing the 1600 meters, the women are doing it too. 1600 meters, the men are too. The 3200 meters, the men are doing it and the women are doing it. You know, like when there's a marathon, the women don't run less. But he says, well, that's different, Tim. This is boxing. You know, that's running. This is boxing. They're taking exorbitant shots. So I said, I get it. I understand. So,
well, what I understand from a medical point of view, and I'm going to be talking to one of the or some of the medical boxing physicians, people who know boxing, you know, because not all doctors do.
Yeah.
But the one question that comes up, because I said I see them doing this in the gym. They're doing 3-minute rounds.
Yeah.
You know, but the question then for me isn't then can they do it? The question is, should they do it?
Yes.
That's the question. And like I said, these are things that are out there. The sport is evolving. I mean, it went from 15 rounds to 12 rounds, and all of this is about safety. And I understand that. I do understand that. But I also know that if you don't evolve, if
Yeah.
you remain stagnant, there's no growth.
Yes. You're absolutely
And
right.
and so we have to recognize that if we want the sport to continue to be alive. When I
Absolutely.
started out as a referee, it was 15 rounds and I had to score because it was on two judges and the referee scored. Okay. And they moved away from that and said, no, the referees got enough to do. Let's go to three judges. And I think it improved the sport. So we have to be at least open to
Change.
new ideas and change.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, but we can't let go of what was working really well. The boxers of your generation, that the boxers of this generation, and we got some young they're coming. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see the difference between your decade and this decade, the fighters?
Well, first of all, the amount of money that these fighters are making is astronomical. It's like, they say the golden years of boxing. Man, this is the year of millionaire years of boxing, because there's a lot more millionaires now than there was back then. There was only 1% of fighters making a crazy amount of money. Now I'm starting to see a lot of these guys, top 10 guys making a whole lot of money. There's more money that's infused in the sports today than there ever has throughout the history of boxing, in my opinion. So that's one plus. However, with that being said, I'm seeing less and less skillful fighters nowadays. We have some
Mhm.
good ones, but less and less skillful fighters. I'm seeing less and less real coaches in the game.
Mhm.
You talked about that, elaborated a little bit on that earlier.
Yeah.
You call them trainers, I call them coaches and teachers. We have less
Mhm.
and less of that. We got a lot of towel holders who I call trainers in the
Mhm.
game. Let's see what else. Uh, we actually, back when I was fighting, and this wasn't too long ago, we fought for legacy. It wasn't just about money. It was about fighting the best guys out there. And you can go into the 90s, the early 2000s. Guys are still hungry to want to
Yeah.
prove that they're the very best.
Right.
Now we have social media. We got guys fighting more and more on social media than they actually are stepping into the ring and actually competing and wanting to fight the best
Yeah.
guys out there. A lot of talking, a lot of woofing. That's all we get now. But since Turkey Al-Sheikh, let's go back to that. Since Turkey has come in the game, we've been able to see more and more fights. Gotta say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
However, the fights that we are expecting to be great, because matchmaking and styles are real good. It's a real thing in boxing. Some of these fights have been kind of duds.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that this past weekend and the weekend beforehand, Canelo, and then, well, this past weekend, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, the fights weren't that great.
Right.
And
Right.
so, but look, that Conor Ben fight and that Eubank fight
I knew
was
you were
fire.
gonna go there. I knew you were going there.
Was fire. You know what I'm saying? That better be a fight, and that Bivol fight was fire. That Fury. Let's not forget that Fury and that Usyk fight. Both these fights were fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So look, we've had some good ones and we had some duds as well.
Yeah. But you
But
had one over the weekend that sort of saved the weekend.
oh
A
yeah,
little fella from Japan.
yeah. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me, Mr. Byrd, man. Look, after this weekend and watching those early fights on Friday and Saturday, I'm not gonna lie. I said to myself, I said, Lord, because people paid money for this, right? I
Mhm.
said, my gosh. Boxing just got set back 20 years after watching this. I felt like I was like, oh, I was upset. I lost my time. I even took the time. I'm like, why did I even watch this? Why did I even pay for this? You know what I mean? It was so disappointing. And then on Sunday, you had Inouye, who I've been wanting to come to America for a very long time now. Finally touched down, man, and what a phenomenal showing. Not only by him but also by um, his opposition he faced. My gosh, man.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, even in the co-main event, you know,
Yes. Yes.
Cardenas and Vasquez, two
Mhm.
Texas fighters, they came to fight.
Yeah.
Anytime I see Texas in the main event, I know they coming to fight. You know what I'm saying? Everything
Yeah.
big in
Yeah.
Texas, you ain't lying on that. But boy, let me tell you, they hearts, they showed up to fight. And I want to thank Vasquez and I want to thank uh
Anyway.
yeah, in a way, I want
Mhm.
to thank everybody that fought on that card. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
they showed up and they showed out, and I don't think we would have had a fight if they weren't willing to give it all. And
Yeah.
that's what I respect about fighters that really understand what the sport is really about. They
Yeah.
want to give to the sport, not just take away, take from the sport.
Yeah. Now I know that your time is valuable, and I'm so happy that you came aboard. But I can't let you go
Okay,
without asking you who Crawford,
come on,
Canelo. Who are you going
come on,
with?
man, come on, Mr. Bird, man, come
Come
on.
on, you gotta have opinion, man. Like you gotta have an opinion.
My opinion is biased. My opinion is biased for several reasons. I know Terrence Crawford personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I been in the ring with Terrence Crawford. When he was coming up. You know what I mean? I would consider myself one of the ones that was like really put him on the map as far as saying like this guy, pay attention to him. He's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
However, um, he's the best fighter in the world, man. He's the best fighter in the world. He's the most skillful fighter in the world. He lives this sport, man. It's not play. It's not about the money. Many people think it's about the 50 million or whatever, how much money, he's making or whatever. I'm not pocket watching, but it was reported. So I'm just saying it. But it's not about just that. It's about proving to everyone because it don't matter what Terrence does done in the sport thus far. People are not giving him the credit that he deserves, man, for what he's done in the sport, and it's shameful. It truly is shameful. Two-time undisputed champion, four-division world champion, man, and they still don't get it because they're saying you don't have the fish on your resume, the big fish on your resume. That's not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
That's not entirely his fault, and many people are blaming him for that. However, I see the skill set, I see the drive. He lives this. He lives a clean lifestyle. He reminds me of Floyd Mayweather. He works
Mm-hmm.
extremely hard inside the gym as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to his training camp. He works hard, nonstop. And this Canelo fight means more. It's the biggest fight of his career, and it means more than everything he has done in the past. And if he can beat Canelo Alvarez, which I think he will, especially after again seeing the way Canelo fought this past weekend, I was one of the first ones to come out and say Crawford gonna beat the hell out of Canelo. He gonna smash him, and the reason why he gonna do it is because Canelo don't like boxers. He has always struggled against boxers. Well, guess who's one of the best boxers in the world? His name is Terrence Crawford. And guess who has the mentality of a warrior? Terrence Crawford. Guess who comes in 15 round shape? Terrence Crawford. This guy cannot, he's a winner. He's a winner. I have a hard time seeing him even lose at a badminton or pool or even dominoes. This guy does not like to lose. And that's the difference. That's the difference between a Charlo or this guy or that guy. He got the skill, the work ethic, the talent, the heart, the drive to be great. One of the greatest in the sport of all time. So look, My money's on Terrence Crawford. I think he gonna get it done. I think you guys got a little illustration of how to beat him or beat Canelo this past weekend. As you saw, he had to go track down this fighter, and he struggled to do so. You see how slow his feet are? You see how slow his feet are? Did you see him swinging all wild? Did you see how frustrated he got? but you know what? You put that with a little bit more offense, you beat Canelo Alvarez, and that's gonna be Terrence Bud Crawford.
You know, I appreciate it. I want you to know that I read your letter that you wrote to yourself,
That's cool.
and it said it said everything that need be said positive about you. And I want you to know that, you know, as a man, as a boxer, as a friend, I appreciate you. And I appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out here with us on our show. And I look forward to having you back again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys for reaching out, man. Thank you so much, man. This has been a lot of fun. Hey, you enjoy the rest of your day, man, brother. Thank you and good luck. And hey, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel because this is inside information you getting. These guys have been in the game a very long time. They know a lot of the secrets of the game. Trust me, they are very knowledgeable. So subscribe to the channel.
Appreciate you.
Yep. All right now. See you later. Peace.
I'm out.
Peace.
Well, Kenny, I think that was a wonderful interview with Mr. Bradley, and such a great man in the sport. And thank you for tuning in to the official call. And to stay connected, subscribe to join our official squad below.